Hello, Stefan from And Other Stories here. Our editor Jeremy Davies and I are going to run you through the 5 titles coming in spring-summer 23. You'll notice 2 of them are in hardback this time. We've chosen our 2 US authors because they're also very much established as artists. Jamie Stewart, as you'll have seen, the founder of Xiu Xiu, has a really intense obsessive following, and by the time you watch this, there will be some amazing endorsements in for that one. Anything that moves. And Johanna Hedva is also already very much established in the art world and in the astrology worlds. The publication date of this book has in fact been chosen to align with the stars.
Hello, this is Jeremy Davies speaking to you from his natural habitat. I'm honored to be able to address you today for And Other Stories about a few books that I feel very strongly about, that I would take a bullet for, that are very special to me, whatever that might say about me. First and foremost being Jamie Stewart's Anything That Moves. Now, Jamie is the singer-songwriter, instigator, motivating force, composer for the indie band Xiu Xiu, which rides the line between deeply felt torch songs and electronic noise, a very specific sweet spot for certain people, I think. If you ever listen to Xiu Xiu, you will hear that Jamie's lyrics tend to be deeply introspective about the worst parts of life, the worst parts of Jamie's life. Anything That Moves, as the title indicates, is a catalog of Jamie's sexual experiences taken from precisely the same perspective. It's a journey from ignorance to not quite bliss through a deep, horrible valley of cringe. It explores compulsive behavior. It explores the trauma that's left behind by child abuse and all sorts of other unpleasantnesses that Jamie handles with humor and aplomb and a sort of faux naive voice that I think is extremely compelling. So I hope you'll all find it as moving as I mean, yes, it is funny, and yes, it is dark. At the end of the day, I think you'll find that it is mainly sad in the best possible way. Now we move into my other great love, aside from squalid novels, which is works in translation. First up is Shalash the Iraqi by Shalash the Iraqi. And this is a book with a real story behind it. During the second Iraq invasion, I should say, as you'll see from the materials, this novel in parts, or this internet novel, I don't know exactly what we want to call it. I kind of think of it as a contemporary Decameron of sorts. These pieces were published online. I mean, this is a country where less than 25,000 people even had internet access, where electricity wasn't something you could rely on having day to day. Nonetheless, Shalash, whomever he is, put out these anonymous blog posts that were very much fiction. They're about invented people. Shalash himself is an invented person. The narrator is not really reliable. But Shalash used this method, almost pre-modern fiction writing method, to talk about what was going on in his country, which was utter chaos. But the remarkable thing is he does it from the perspective of a comedian, and he makes fun of it and makes fun of himself. He makes fun certainly of the Americans and the Bush II regime, but also of the, all the con artists of various sizes and powers who grow up in Iraq and try to steal, everything they can, be it the hearts and minds of the locals from the perspective of a religious leader to just simple money, oil rights, etc. And so the book goes through magical realism, goes through slapstick, goes through serious and often heartbreaking political commentary. It really is a remarkable book. It's a document of a time that is past and that certainly we Americans are already virtually amnesiac about. And it's also an extremely funny book, novel, whatever you want to call it, that shows a side of Arabic literature that just never gets an airing in English. So again, a book I love. Next up is Johanna Hedva's Your Love Is Not Good, a blistering indictment of the art world from an insider. The narrator of Your Love Is Not Good is an up-and-coming Asian American artist, painter, and she begins to feel she's finally breaking through. She begins to see some success just as soon as she starts painting a white woman, and just as soon simultaneously as there's a boycott of galleries by artists of color who feel that they're being turned into numbers in a quota, calling for everyone to stop submitting their work to precisely those galleries that are giving the narrator of Hedva's novel her shot at finally being independent financially as well as aesthetically. It's an extraordinary novel. It's Johanna's first real novel. Johanna is also an up-and-coming artist, curator, musician, an extraordinary talent. There's a book of nonfiction coming out soon as well. We have really remarkable quotes coming in for both Your Love Is Not Good and for Jamie Stewart's book. I think we'll have a really good shot at crossover success for both these titles. They're hot in every sense.
And now that reminds me by Derek Owusu, which is an absolute favourite of the team here. And in fact, the first time we're publishing a book without UK rights, we just absolutely had to see this book come out in the US. Yeah, we've also changed the publication date because there's some amazing news coming late April, which we want to be able to take to the books editors in the media ahead of publication, and we guarantee it will really help coverage. So we're publishing now late June. As you see, there's a ton of amazing endorsements, everyone from literature people like Booker winner Bernardine Evaristo, Mary Gateskill, many others, to people like civil rights activist DeRay McKesson, and it also comes on the back of winning the Best Prize for Debut Novelist in the UK, the Desmond Elliot, when it was published by Stormzy's imprint Murky Books in the UK. So what is it? It's really a scrapbook of memories of a man who's lost. He's lost culturally, also lost in his attempts to adhere to archetypes of masculinity. And in the book, he addresses and entreats Anansi as an entreaty to a lost culture. The narrator is called Kay. He's a British Ghanaian man. And the memories in the book lead from his birth to being taken into care in a white family who lives in the countryside, to then as an adolescent being brought back to his birth family in the big city. And that's a momentous event. It marks a dramatic shift in his life. And he has to learn to integrate himself into a culture that feels alien to him at this point. And he's also trying to overcome his mental health problems, borderline personality disorder. So, mental health and black masculinity and black diaspora identities are very big themes in this book, and are really touchingly and beautifully and experimentally explored. We really do have high hopes for US coverage, as I've said. We're thinking NPR as well as the larger newspapers, and podcasts are also going to be very much on our target list. Meanwhile, one of our favourite regionals, the Star Tribune in Minneapolis, has already confirmed that a review has been assigned, which we feel is a great early sign. And the book went out to the 100 indie stores in Consortium's Galley box. If you don't have a copy, though, and want to read it, I'd love to send you one.
Last but not least, Michele Mari's You Bleeding Childhood. Thing to say about this is that, I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I came from a background very much rooted in science fiction and comic books and sort of geek culture. And, you never really leave that behind if that's where you come from. Mari is very much from a different generation. He grew up in post-war Italy. Very different circumstances entirely. His father, Enzo Mari, was a brilliant, famous designer, but maybe not the best father. Was kind of cold, was kind of distant. So Mari Jr., Michele Mari, who we are publishing, has made a kind of career, an extremely successful one in Italy, where he's absolutely beloved, of sort of taking a Borgesian or Cesar Ira would be another good comp approach to the obsessions of his childhood and going back to them with the mind of an adult, and owning up to the ways that all those obsessions are still with him, that he can't get past them, that he still, the science fiction novels that he read as a kid, the covers that frightened him because they were so grotesque, the cartoons, the comic books, the toys, they're still the household gods of his adulthood. They still have a huge hold over his mind. And so he goes back and looks at those fears and looks at those experiences and looks at his relationship with his parents in a very, autobiographical and very honest way, but with a tinge of the supernatural about them, as though those horrors were real, as though those can still come back and snatch you away in the night, as though the pleasures and terrors of childhood were as important and as necessary as the fear of war, the fear of disease, the fear of losing a loved one. So very much, again, up my alley, and something I really love and I really hope people will give a shot to.